Okay, I want to share information which is very important to be aware of, and this is for whoever gets it, and understand that you could share this information and realize that it needs to be shared to so people get an idea of what's really going on. Um, in the seventh year of Troy, the seventh year of the war in Troy, the Trojan conflict, there was a man named Helenus who was the son of Priam. He was a prince of Troy, brother to Hector. He was negotiating messages between Minerva, the goddess, and Priam and Hector, the king of Troy, Priam, and Hector, the first prince of Troy, the oldest son of Priam, the king of Troy. Um, in the first, so for the first 7 years that the war in Troy was fought, um, it was an attempt to negotiate the problem between the divine feminine collective in Troy and the divine masculine collective in Troy. So that means the spiritual collective of both the men of Troy and the women of Troy who were fighting and struggling. The women were not listening to God. They were only listening to Minerva, who would have Mars, but tell it her way. And so basically, Minerva was with Hera on this and basically self possessed and fully combat ready. And Minerva had her own agenda. And her agenda was to destroy Troy and the bloodline of Troy and everything, to kill all of them off. So there was no Trojans to make a Rome. So if Minerva had her way, there would have never been a Rome, because the son of Venus, would never been able to find Rome later. So basically, the Trojans that escaped death to follow Troy went on to find Rome. The son of Venus was Enos, and he was actually a son of the goddess Venus, and she protected him and loved him, and she would take care of him. And once, when he was on the battlefield and he almost was about to die, Venus came down to the battlefield and actually fought, and stood between him, and so he couldn't die. So basically, she was a very protective mother that was a very awesome goddess to make sure that her son can't get killed. And ultimately, she got hurt trying to protect him. So you can imagine a goddess that got hurt trying to protect her son. Well, she did. She had to go get help to heal a goddess. Yeah, and it was a man who attacked her, Diomedes. Diomedes had Athena and was like fighting like a god with Athena, who was giving Diomedes ultimate divinity. So he was just a man on the field that was had possessed by Athena and ultimately attacked Enos, the son of Venus. And so Venus rescued Enos and basically got hurt herself and had to go up to Mount Olympus to ask for healing. And this is a story about how the demons and Satan got control, and how they got control of Troy and also helped make Troy fall. They also helped Trojans escape. So some of those demons were not trying to destroy Troy. Many of them were. The select amount that were supposed to destroy Troy were doing it through deceit and vices. Every kind of deceit and every kind of backstabbing was happening between the men and women of Troy. The husbands didn't trust the wives, and the daughters didn't trust the dad. Basically, the brother didn't trust the brother, and sister didn't trust sister. It was a absolute huge problem. Troy, basically, before it ever even got attacked, it was crumbling. So it was just a matter of the collective of the women and men were fighting. So the Minerva was absolutely insistent upon winning and getting her way. She would talk her dad Zeus into helping her, and she would come to him and say, like, look, those egotistical men are big fat egos, and they have to die if they don't let us women have some fair treatment. And so Zeus didn't really agree with her. He said they're not treating him so bad, and ultimately this is a man's world, and Minerva was saying it should be a woman's world too. And so Zeus was letting Minerva attack Troy to force them into being more nice to the divine feminine collective. So the Trojan men that were defending Troy, many were dying in battle, and ultimately they were selectively killing Trojans in battle, certain Trojans. So they actually labeled every Trojan that would die up to the actual Trojan on the field. They looked for him to kill specific Trojans that were influences on the masculine collective, and they wanted to destroy the collective or destroy the powerful men that were influencing that collective. And they destroyed them one by one, and until like the collective got weak and it started getting stumbling. It started making the masculine men doubt in their hearts. They started doubting their own skills and their own truth. Because yeah, when you get enough men killed that are ruling your collective, well, your collective changes into something much more, well, cowardly. Even at some point, your collective will be scared. So there's no one left to lead it. Ultimately, when Hector died, it was the masculine collective was shot up. They were all freaking out, like, "Oh my God, like we're not even strong anymore, man. We're Trojans." Well, I know we gotta get the hell out of here then, because Hector's dead. Well, Hector would have made him brave. Hector, if he was alive, they would have been like, "We're cool, we're cool." But as soon as Hector was gone, no, it's gone. It was over. It was over for Troy when Hector died, and even Priam was destroyed. The demons were sicked on Troy. They were, "Hey, you're back, wayward Jedi. Hey, good timing." So the demons and Trojans were sent there with a purpose. Now understand that the demons are mediators between. At that time, they were mediators between mankind and the gods, and Troy didn't have any mediators between mankind and the gods because the Trojans talked to the gods themselves directly, which was never done before. Troy was called the city of God because the gods came to Troy, Apollo, and I told the story, and Poseidon and built the walls of Troy and made them impenetrable. Since they were built by gods, even Eris, the god of war, couldn't get through the walls, and he tried. So they were just impenetrable because they had protection of Poseidon and Apollo, who were major gods on the walls. When they built them, they did something to them, said, "No one's getting through these walls, not anyone, no one, not even Eris, the god of war." And the when the women were really fighting with the men, and women were locking themselves in the bathroom and ignoring God, and then trying to, it was like the women were at war with God, and they were only want Minerva. Minerva was using Mars, and Mars, well, probably didn't care much, but ultimately Minerva was being Mars and then having her own opinions that weren't Mars. So basically she was trying to be Hera, and they were hating the Trojans, wanting to die. They hated ego, and they wanted ego to die. All egotistical behavior should be dead. So they wanted to kill off the ego of mankind. Understand that ego is a spirit that's alive in us today, and understand that egotistical behavior is not a coincidence when it's a familiarity. Understand that the egotistical behavior I may have in my head or in my mind or heart, it's a spirit that comes from the devil, and it comes from the singular masculine, actually. So let's not use the word devil. Let's say that if I told you, let's look at the essence of the spirit, of the substance of the matter itself, the entity itself, and let's not call it devil. Let's call it the singularity, masculine only singularity, that's powerful and is in a half form as a whole form. And that's important to know. A half form as a whole form means it's only half. It's masculine only. It doesn't have feminine, so it makes it half. But it's in a whole form because it's all an entity, just all one-sided, just one-sided. And so it's actually not for the other side. It's the devil. But ultimately, the egotistical behavior we have comes from Eris, the god of war, who is the devil. So you could say Eris, the god of war, is the devil. But I mean, that's not really true. Ares is the devil. So wait a minute. Ares is the devil? Absolutely. The first pantheon, the first spot in the pantheon, the Greek pantheon, is the devil. And ultimately, it became Athena. So basically, Athena, when Eris was killed, that's another thing. We could talk about that, but I was going to talk about the demons and Satan. So understand that Satan was created. Now, if he was around before this, it's possible, but he was nothing in the limelight, meaning before the seventh year of Troy, that Satan was not anything. I mean, he was wherever he was, he was doing something, probably, maybe he thought it was important, and it was, but he was not like a world factor influence of defining everything. Like, he wasn't in the whole conflict at all. And so basically, understand, for the first 7 years of fighting the war of Troy, Satan had nothing to do with it and wasn't even involved in it. There were demons there that were involved in it, but in the seventh year, it was called, and in the mid-seventh year, it was called Time's Up. And the war would end up another 3 years being fought. But in the seventh year, Time's Up came. Time's Up meant that the declaration of Zeus had said, for 7 years, you've been trying to solve this conflict, and the Divine Feminine Collective, through Minerva, is absolutely refusing to settlement, meaning the women of Troy said, we are goddesses, and we will rule you, and you will bow to us. And the men of Troy said, not going to happen, daughter. Not going to happen, wifey. Ain't going to happen. And so understand that literally, I'm telling you the exact mentality of what was going on. The women were like Minerva, the goddess. They had her directly. They were like, you are going to respect us and bow down to us. And the men said, no, absolutely not. You are out of your mind. You got Minerva, that crazy ass goddess. And ultimately, they called her that. The men of Troy called Minerva a crazy ass goddess. She was insane. She wanted to kill all the Trojans and kill the babies too. And she did. She killed Hector's baby. She threw his 1-year-old child from the wall. Well, actually, Ulysses had it done, but it was at her orders, which meant she was trying to kill the entire line of Trojans off the face of the planet. And she was going to search. Minerva's plan was to, after the war, single-handedly search out every Trojan that ever existed and kill off the ego entirely so she could kill the devil. She was trying to kill the devil. Do you understand? What's important to know about that is that she was trying to kill the devil. Eros. Eros was a devil. The first spot in the pantheon belongs to the singular masculinity. It's a singularity in a half form. So it means it's not for the other. It's all by itself. It's selfish oriented. It's very, very selfish and by its nature, because it doesn't have the other. So understand that the one in the first spot in the pantheon, there was 12 spots in the pantheon, and there was 6 spots for goddesses. So there were 6 goddesses. There were 6 spots for gods, and so there were 6 gods. And Eros, the god of war, was the youngest god, a son of Zeus and a brother of Apollo, the sun god. Eros was the god of war, and he was in the first spot. He was a very powerful, tough god who could fight like you wouldn't believe, and he had courage and everything, but he had some faults, which were ultimately, it causes his demise. So Eros was in the battle of the war, and the god of war was trying to penetrate the walls of Troy that his brother and his uncle built. And he was trying to help the Greeks get into Troy. He was also on the Trojan side. And understand what happened to Eros, the god of war. This is unheard of insights. Understand that it's basically Aries. Aries is the in the zodiac. Aries is the first house in the zodiac. It's the first part of the pantheon. It's basically the devil or the ego, the first part of our egotistical behavior in a masculine that's singular. It's called the egotistical behavior men have. Understand that men in Africa right now that have the ego and act egotistical are acting the same as men in the United States that are having that same ego. Understand that ego is not coincidentally just a behavior that we have that happens to be in different men in different places. Ego is an entity. It's an entity that gets into all men by possessing them. And if men don't want ego, they won't take it. So if men have ego, they already did take it, which means that if you see a man acting egotistical, he's got the spirit of the devil in him. And that's what I'll tell you. And it's Satan. So ultimately, what does it mean? It means that the truth is the truth, man. Can you handle it? You can handle the truth. I'm going to say we can handle it. We have to handle it. Understand, we have to handle the truth. If you don't want to call it the devil or Satan, call it Eros, the god of war, or Aries. We could say Aries, the first house of astrology, is a darn devil. Well, yeah, he's the same spot in the pantheon. He's a singular masculine. So how do we define what Satan or the devil or Aries or Eros, how do we define what they are in their essence if we don't want to call them names? A singular masculine with no feminine as a half, not the other half, just this half, not that half. If you take this half and it's not that half, then you say this half is only half and it's all I got, and it's kind of set against you. It's only for me. It's selfish. It's an ego, and it's a spirit that gets in all men. So the war in Troy in the 7th year was going nowhere. And Zeus knew this. It was not going to get better. And Helenus, the high priest of Apollo, who was negotiating with Minerva, who was attacking Troy, and also negotiating with the Divine Feminine Collective in the women in Troy. He was a high priest of Apollo, and he was trying to negotiate some kind of terms for peace for everything so they didn't sack Troy. I see everything, Apollo would say. And he was usually forgiving, but he literally, when he found people doing stuff that you could see them doing it now, and when he thought they were doing it, he would he would be very unforgiving. Like he turned into a like really bad, like angry and wow, like we don't want to piss Paul off. Um, I'm being told something, so sorry if I'm just being told something. I think he wants me to change the subject or talk about something specific here. Okay, so Apollo, the sun god, and who was the older brother of the devil, or the older brother of Eris, or you can call him Satan or demon or whatever you want. It's a singular masculine in the first house called Aries. So if we weren't calling names, we'd just say it's a singular masculinity that's half and not the other. It's selfish and it's egotistical, and it will be. It will be. It's an entity that's alive. It's in all men, in all places in the world. Men take it, so they'll act the same with it. But egotistical behavior is not because men just happen to act that way by a chance. It's an entity that's alive in them. It's living, and it's also been rejected. It's been told it sucks, it's worthless, die, ego, we don't take you. Like basically, it's Aries being told you're not in our world, you cannot be in our country, you can't. We don't take egotistical behavior, or ego itself is not accepted. Understand, anyone that would say that, well, what if I told you the ego is an entity that says, I want to be accepted, I want to be important too, and why don't I have a purpose? What the hell's wrong with all you? You're telling me I shouldn't even live. You're telling me I'm a total bad person just because I exist. My entity is bad because it is existing. What the hell are you trying to do? Make me feel bad? Guilty? I'm going to get mad. I'm going to get real mad. Ultimately, the ego loses because men don't know any of this, and they're certainly upset about it. And ultimately, being attacked, the ego being attacked, will retaliate. If it's backed by a god, watch out, because ultimately that god will defend the ego and kill the aggressors. Ultimately, it's scary. It's very scary. When Satan's on your side, he'll protect you, and ultimately he'll kill the enemy. So you don't want to be against him. You certainly don't want to be against him. You don't want him to be on the bat. You want to give him the acknowledgement and respect he deserves. And ultimately, that's part of why we're in conflict, why we're fighting. In Troy, the seventh year, Satan came in as a mediator because there was no solution to the settlement of the war. 7 years it had been fought, and it ended up being 10 years, but 7 years it had been fought, and Zeus said, it's not, it was known, the feminine collective was saying, no, we're not relenting. No, we'll never relent. We're never giving up. Ultimately, because of that, seventh year came in, Satan was called forth by God, and he said, you're going to mediate this thing. You're going to punish, you're going to find out who's doing what by getting in their heads and spying on everybody. And we're going to find out who's doing what. And we're going to take out every person that's bad or wrong or ruining this world. So basically, Satan came in as a mediator to go possess people and try to get into them. And the demons, too, were his little cronies. And they were all told to go try to get into them, the people, and mingle with them. Some of the demons' job was to incite vices and make them drink too much, make them smoke too much, make them have addictions. Oh yeah, that was a favorite. And if it wasn't, you had some addiction you couldn't handle, so it was ruining your life. Well, that's one way they get you. And then they were destroying Troy itself from the inside. And the actual Satan himself came into this world in the seventh year of the Trojan War. He said, I came in as a major player in the whole arena in the seventh year because I was a mediator. In other words, I am the one now punishing everybody, and I'm destroying everything. And I could go in there and pretend to be your friend and destroy you the next minute, because it's all about, there's no honor. There's nothing honorable left about Troy. The women were backstabbing the husbands and lying to them and stabbing their eyes out. Understand that the women of Troy behaved so poorly and so badly, they stabbed their husbands' eyes out with a dagger or with their bare hands. That was the behavior of what happened to the women, how they were acting. An angry goddess, just enraged. How dare you? And ultimately, they acted out that behavior. The men were of Troy were egotistical and they drank alcohol, and so they were absolutely problematic. They their wives wanted equality, and they would say like, "You're my wife, you're my daughter. You can't tell me what to do. I have the final say." And the women wives would act like Minerva, their goddess. They'd say, "No, you don't have final say of me. I can do what I want. I am an equal to you, husband." Ultimately, the husband would be like, "Well, wife, you got a problem, don't you?" And then he'd drink and get drunk. And then he'd be like, "Oh, you bitch." Yeah, then he'd act like a fool and beat her up. And oh, yeah, it was really bad because the Trojan men made themselves wrong with the alcohol. They'd start taking it out on their wives, and they'd get drunk and beat up their wives and pick on them and belittle them. And so it turned into a big, bad, terrible human interaction. This city of God that was so blessed by the gods turned into a hell itself because it was so twisted that the women could poison their husbands. They would poison their husbands and kill them, and they would trick them into drinking their poison. Understand that behavior was Minerva, the goddess. She was so relentlessly saying, "I'll get you any way I want, and I'll take you out." And that was Minerva. She was badass goddess. It was like she didn't take no shit, and she would kick your ass and kill you. For nothing if she felt like it. So she'd kill you just because you got Trojan blood. You're one of the Trojans. You got to die. Well, that was partly why Minerva died. Because what Minerva was not aware of is that, well, she was aware of it. Zeus, her father, called her a vixen and said, "You better watch out, daughter. You're thin line here. If I throw you off this mountain, daughter, and you're dead." Like he threatened to kill his own daughter and his wife, Hera. He told him many times, like, "You tried to overthrow me already. You're lucky I let you even live." And ultimately, Zeus was a father of gods, and he was not happy with his wife. He didn't trust her. She didn't trust him either. And basically, Minerva's daughter, he had allowed her to attack Troy because she had demanded that the women of Troy were being enslaved by the men who were drunk and misbehaving and abusing them. And and Zeus didn't believe it because he knew. He said, so they get drunk and they beat their wives because their wives are being witches. Well, yeah, ultimately Zeus thought maybe they deserve to get beat around because they're ultimately insisting that they get to rule, and they're telling their husband to shut up and listen. And the husbands are saying, "We are men and we rule. You don't tell us what to do." So Zeus supported the Trojans. Zeus said that those men are stupid to drink and maybe they shouldn't. And that is their fault. And I think it was the alcohol that the Trojan men drank that really ruined everything for them because Zeus was protecting those men and would never let Troy fall or his favorite egos that were behaving. He was literally saying, "Okay, fine." He was relenting to Minerva because Minerva said, "I'm going to attack those drunken fool. We're going to pick those idiots out and kill them one by one." And she was. Minerva was selecting the names of the Trojan soldiers and finding out where they existed in the ranks. So she would have her Greeks attack certain parts of the ranks of the Trojans when they came out to kill certain men to get them dead because she was really selective in trying to remove the influence that was against her. And she did probably a good job of doing it for a while. But ultimately, the only reason why she got away with it is because drunken Trojan men did beat their wives. And what could Zeus say? Like, I guess it's not right. They beat him pretty badly. And ultimately, there's enough of them drunk that beat their wives that caused Zeus to say, "Damn it. So fine, you're right, daughter. So those men are being wrong. And so, yeah, what do you want to do? Kill them off? Only some of them, Dad. I only want to kill some of them, just certain specific ones." And yeah, because I know who they are. There are certain men that are influencing the whole entire thing, and I want them dead. So ultimately, you got to be careful because if Minerva didn't like you, she'd pick you out for execution, and you could just be some nice guy. But yeah, it's scary, and it's scary, pretty much. Say that. Now, Satan was and the demons. Their job was to subversion. Uh, they were deceitful vices to be spread, addictions. They made the Trojan men drunken alcoholics that couldn't stop drinking. So there was a large proportion. See, Minerva wanted the devil dead and was ultimately wanting Satan dead. So she wasn't on his side. But Zeus told Satan and the demons, "I want you to get in there and destroy those men that are being drunken fools too. So they'd get those men that were drinking too much. Satan and his demons would get in them and make them drink even more until they couldn't stop drinking, and it affected everything. They'd either die or drop out. They couldn't even fight. So they would, yeah, it would be like an addiction that you couldn't control. It was demons in you causing you to have such absolute compelling feelings to drink alcohol, and you could like, I just need more, man. I can't stop. I can't stop. I'm smoking and I can't stop, man. What's wrong? You're a soldier. Get yourself together, boy. Oh, well, I'm having an addiction problem. That was the first addictions that ever came to the world. Men really didn't have the big addiction problems, other than if they drank too much, it was a problem. But the demons getting in you were specifically stayed there to compel you and harass you, and they also would tell you, you're beating your wife, you fool, you dumbass, why are you beating your wife? So ultimately those demons were there for a good reason, to help. They were going to get in the heads of those Trojan drunken men, and they got in the heads of the women that were being wrong, and they'd get in your head and they'd make your conscience feel guilty. They would say, you're wrong, you're bad. They talk to your heart and they'd say, you are going to die, you're going to die because we're going to kill you, and all this stuff. And it made these people that had these demons in them now for the first time. This happened in the 7th year of Troy, that the demons showed up with Satan, and they were let loose on Troy society that was still protected, and it lasted 3 more years. The war did. It lasted for 10 years, but the 7th year, the demons and Satan got into Troy and were subverting and making. But what their job was, you have to understand, the job of the demons and Satan was not to utterly just hurt things. It was to get into the drunken, addicted Trojan men that drank too much and make them feel guilty by telling them, you're going to die. I'm in your head. I'm a demon, and I'm telling you everything. You're stupid. You're dumb. You're drinking too much. You beat your wife. And ultimately, the demons were doing a service to Zeus, and it was good, not bad. They were trying to destroy the addicted Trojan drunken men and make them feel guilty by literally getting in their heads and doing it, and possessing them and doing it. So then the other demons that were supposed to get into all the women's heads of the collective of all the women of Troy, they were going to get in their heads, possess them, and then say, you're a dirtbag woman. You hate God. You're so stupid. And God said, yeah, ultimately they could tell them whatever they wanted. And they would belittle them, berate them, and cut them down. And these women of Troy, when they got possessed by these demons in the 7th year, they suddenly had a struggle in their mind that were there. Whoa, what happened today? It's like the 7th year, and something happened bad. What happened? I don't know, man, but I'll be telling you in the next months. I feel attacked by invisible demons or something. I'm just like, wow, I'm constantly beating myself down, and they're telling me I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I should die. Yeah, well, that's the demons, and they're doing it. They do it pretty good. And ultimately, it was supposed to help. It wasn't supposed to. It was supposed to actually help, and it's really not funny. So I wouldn't even dare laugh. Understand that they were supposed to help the Trojan men get to whatever they're going to get to. Either they're going to fix themselves by saying, "Okay, I'm wrong. I'm drinking too much. I'm bad." Well, the demons would then get out of their head if they did relent. But they were told, the demons were like a special elite force of spiritual God's demon squad. They were to get into those heads and make them feel guilty, tell them they're stupid, they're dumb, they're idiots, they need to change, and if they don't, they're going to die. Keep telling them they're going to die in their head. And ultimately, these people were feeling this. They felt this attack, and they were like, "Oh my God!" They were all distressed in the 7th year, and the last three years. Okay, all right. The last 3 years of the war. Oh wow! It almost is 3 more minutes. The last years of the war, and I'll continue. I guess I'm switching to another room. I got to go to the other room. So when I go to the other room, I'll continue. Okay. All right.